I'm just very satisfied by seeing him make such a huge unforced error.
I have to say, your use of the word delicious to start your comments, and then you're saying that you're very satisfied.
Scott Jennings just obliterated Jemele Hill live on CNN. Not with insults, but by calmly exposing the sick double standard in her own words. While she smirked her way through a conversation about Epstein's victims, Jennings dropped the kind of truth that left the entire panel speechless. And for once, someone called out their cruelty, right on their own turf.
This is just a delicious own goal for so many reasons. So now he's got to produce some kind of smoking gun. And if there isn't one, nobody's going to believe it. So I'm just very satisfied by seeing him make such a huge unforced error.
It all started with what should have been a serious discussion. The panel was covering the Epstein scandal, a case built on years of abuse, trafficking, and elite protection. But instead of talking about the victims, Jemele Hill leaned in with a grin and called it a delicious own goal. That's right. She turned one of the most disturbing cases of our time into political popcorn. And she wasn't done. She said she was delighted watching Trump fumble the narrative. No mention of the girls, no outrage for the survivors. Just a smug performance for applause. That's the part that makes your skin crawl. Not just what she said, but what she chose to ignore.
Where we just sort of laugh about the situation but forget the underlying issue, the victims here, to me, it's
so
beyond the pale.
What's your solution?
That's when Scott Jennings leaned forward and delivered the kind of response that doesn't need volume to be powerful. Just precision. He didn't deflect, he didn't play the political game, and he didn't let her narrative slide. Instead, he brought the conversation back to where it should have started. The victims. With calm but undeniable weight, he reminded the panel that this wasn't about political points or headlines. It was about young women who were trafficked, abused, and discarded by a system that protected the powerful. And when he said it, you could feel the shift instantly. The studio energy deflated, the smugness cracked, and the silence that followed said more than any argument could. Jennings didn't just counter her words, he forced the entire room to sit in the discomfort they were so desperate to avoid.
To start your comments, and then you're saying that you're very satisfied, but we are talking about a situation here where young women were abused. This is a tragic case. Maxwell's in jail because she helped traffic the women. This is a very, very tragic case.
Jennings wasn't just a guest. He was CNN's usual conservative wildcard, expected to spark drama and move on. But this time, he completely broke the script. Instead of playing into the noise, he dragged the spotlight back to the victims. And that's when the whole segment fell apart.
People on the left taking great political delight in this because they don't care one bit about the victims. They only started caring this about 5 minutes ago. They only started caring 5 minutes ago when it was a cudgel against Trump.
But Jennings didn't stop there, because this wasn't just about one bad take, it was about a pattern. He called out the entire panel, and by extension, the media class, for suddenly pretending to care about Epstein only when it became politically useful. For years, they sat on their hands while victims begged to be heard, while names on flight logs were buried, and while Ghislaine Maxwell went to prison without a single powerful client ever being named. And now, with Trump's name floating in the headlines, suddenly it's a moral crusade. Jennings wasn't having it. He made it painfully clear that this last-minute outrage isn't rooted in justice, it's rooted in opportunism. And the reason it stung so much is because he was right, and they all knew it.
If you're funny, and you make money, and people want to watch your show, you can do things. And if you're not funny, and you're committed to partisan liberal hackery that's hemorrhaging viewers, and is not profitable, then you can't do things.
What made Jennings' takedown so effective wasn't just the truth he spoke, it was how effortlessly he dismantled their entire performance without ever losing control. While the others danced around headlines and partisan spin, he stayed locked on the one thing they refused to confront. The victims were never supposed to be a political prop. He didn't let Jemele Hill or anyone else pivot to Trump bashing or vague outrage. Instead, he exposed how their moral outrage only kicks in when it serves the narrative. And that's exactly why the panel froze. Not because he yelled, not because he attacked, but because he told the truth they couldn't afford to say out loud.
Once again, show his patience and precision as he sits through an hour of smug, self-congratulatory liberal elites making up stories.
Let's just pause for 1 second. Because this right here, this is the part they don't want you to notice. A calm, factual takedown that made elite media flinch harder than any scandal ever could. So don't scroll, don't stay silent, drop a comment, hit the like button, and subscribe. Because if we don't share moments like this, they'll make sure we never see them again. And why are they so desperate to bury it? Because that truth didn't just call out one panelist. It cracked the entire performance wide open. And let's not pretend this is the first time Jennings wrecked a CNN segment.
Clearly, you used to teach there, right?
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
I was treated like an exotic zoo animal. Trust me.
Oh, I'm sure.
The faculty.
Oh, I'm
the faculty
sure.
is not conservative. Believe me.
He's done it before. Remember the grocery price rant that spun the panel sideways? Or the time he threw the whole show off course by questioning Trump's injury? That's his thing. Disrupt, distract, create noise. But this time, this wasn't noise. This was clarity. He didn't just throw a wrench into the narrative, he forced the whole machine to stop and look in the mirror. And let's be honest, that's the part they really couldn't handle. Because when Scott called out the selective outrage, he wasn't just criticizing one panelist. He was pulling back the curtain on the entire media routine. The same people who stayed silent when Epstein's story first broke, who shrugged when the flight logs disappeared, who looked the other way when Ghislaine went down alone, are now pretending to lead the justice charge. Please. Jennings didn't need to spell it out. The hypocrisy was sitting right there in the studio, dressed up as righteous indignation. And for once, someone had the guts to call it exactly what it was. Fake, shallow, and about as compassionate as a headline click.
They've run into a roadblock there. They've got the Deputy Attorney General interviewing Maxwell. I don't know what they can and will release, but I have no problem with whatever transparency they come up with.
But what made this moment even more brutal was that Jennings didn't just go after the left. He turned the mirror on his side too. He pointed out that while Democrats suddenly discovered a conscience, some Republicans were now getting cold feet about releasing the full Epstein files. The same crowd that spent years chanting, "Drain the swamp," is now acting nervous, quiet, even defensive, as if exposing the truth might be inconvenient for the wrong people. And Jennings wasn't about to let that slide either. He made it crystal clear: if you spent your political career demanding justice and accountability, you don't get to go silent just because your team's name might be on the list.
One side's saying this isn't about Trump, it's about justice. Release every name, every record, and every flight log. The other side is suddenly squeamish, worried that it'll hurt our political chances or distract from the real issues.
And that's really what set him apart in that moment. While everyone else was treating the conversation like some political chess game, trying to protect their side, shift blame, or spin headlines, Jennings kept cutting through the noise with one simple idea. If justice only matters when it helps your team, then it was never about justice to begin with. He didn't dodge the uncomfortable parts or dance around the possibility that people on both sides might be implicated. He just said what nobody else wanted to hear. That truth doesn't care who it takes down, and if you're not okay with that, then maybe you were never serious about accountability in the first place. And just when you thought the tension couldn't stretch any tighter, the panel tried to change the subject. Fast. They pivoted to South Park's season premiere, which had just taken some brutal jabs at Trump.
South Park's season premiere, which absolutely roasted Trump. Scott didn't miss a beat. He just laughed and answered exactly as I would.
You could practically see the relief on their faces. Like finally, something funny to dunk on. But Jennings didn't take the bait. He laughed, gave credit where it was due, and said what every normal person was thinking. South Park roasts everyone, and that's exactly why it works. No whining, no fake outrage, no playing victim. He handled it like an adult, and in doing so made the rest of the table look even more unserious by comparison. And that, right there, made the contrast even sharper. While the others tried to turn South Park into a safe distraction, something to laugh at, something that wouldn't force any real reflection, Jennings used it to prove a point. He wasn't bothered by satire because he understood what actual accountability looks like. The people who panic over jokes are usually the ones afraid they're being exposed. But Jennings? He didn't just welcome the criticism, he showed that when your principles are solid, you don't need to hide behind outrage. That's what made his presence so uncomfortable for the panel. Not because he was combative, but because he was consistent, and that's a rare thing in that room. So here's the question. Was Scott Jennings out of line, or just the only one in the room who refused to play along? Because when silence protects power, sometimes the loudest truth is the one spoken calmly. Let us know what you think in the comments.